It's our great pleasure to welcome to our 2021 Online Trend Summit one of Australia's most celebrated chefs, co-owner of Woodcut restaurant in Sydney, New South Wales that he runs with his wife, Sunny. It's a pleasure to welcome Ross Lusted. It's great to have you join us today, Ross.
Thanks, Charles. Thanks for having us.
You've worked across the globe in different geographies and across different parts of hospitality, all seemingly leading to this culmination of all of these learnings and experiences in Woodcut, where you're reimagining luxury, reimagining what we think of as a menu, as a kitchen, as a restaurant, and championing elemental cooking. So much to talk about. Can't wait to get into our discussion. But just before we do, if you're participating in today's summit as a Trend Hub subscriber, you can discover more about elemental cooking in the 22-23 cuisines and ingredient trends framework, and also in the 22-23 food and beverage megatrend respect within the sub-trend that we've called analog cooking. So explore all that rich content on Trend Hub. Ross, let's get started. I mean, just can you bring to life for, where are you? Where is Woodcut? Help us kind of imagine this space that you're in.
Oh, we are. Thanks for having me, Charles. And I wish we could literally be walking through Woodcut. Woodcut for me is a restaurant that is what I've always wanted to open, but it's an unexpected restaurant. I was very bored with the idea of entree, main course, dessert. And when I stopped cooking, I worked in hotel development for 10 years, living all over the world. And I looked at restaurants, and because I was eating in restaurants all the time, we were building restaurants, we were building hotels. And I sort of looked at this and said, why do we do this like this? And what excites me about restaurants? And I'd find if I was in Japan, I'd go to one restaurant that just did one thing. Yeah. And I thought, how could I open a restaurant that was just that thing? And what I sort of came up with was, let's lose the idea of an entree, main course, dessert format. Yeah. And just have pieces of equipment. Those pieces of equipment then drive the menu and also the sensory elemental, that's what we all love about food. Yeah. And so Woodcut is a vision that I had a long time ago. I learned more about what I wanted to do by not being in the kitchen and traveling and eating. That was my journey.
That's brilliant. And I suppose I was just going to come on to, what has been that kind of inspiration? What's kind of molded this idea from your perspective? I know when we chatted before, you talk about different experiences in different countries and your love of art and sculpture and those types of things. What are the things that have molded this concept for you?
I was probably the worst client for our architects, and having worked for Aman Resorts for a long time and quite closely with Adrian Zecker, I learned so much from Adrian in the sense that, he took the idea of a hotel and said, well, why is it like that? We don't need televisions. We should talk to each other. We need big libraries. And the destination was always stronger than the product. He said, we can build a hotel anywhere in the world, but it needs to be in a destination that is far superior. And I think what I learned from Adrian was I couldn't have someone procure the crockery. I couldn't have someone do the interior design or design the furniture. So we're involved, or I'm involved in every aspect of it. Yeah. And I think that's what brings it to life and gives it this cohesiveness. The open kitchens are critical for me. Yeah. There's nothing worse. I've worked in restaurants where you stand and the first time you know that there's a customer in the restaurant, when either the waiter walks in and says samaj and you get a check, or the printers, in these day and age, the printers start going. And for me, that's, there's this idea of customers arriving, the eye contact with the staff, the chefs are there, chefs are with all the television and everything now. People want to see how it works and they want to ask questions. And it's quite funny seeing the young chefs working in the kitchen. All the kitchens are open. We don't even have cool rooms. Yeah. So, wow. So this interaction with the customers is very real. And I wanted counter dining. I wanted private rooms. I wanted, in our business, they say, try not to be everything to everyone. And I completely disagree with that. I think you need to have this vehicle that people go, let's go to Woodcut for a Sunday lunch, or I've got a quick meeting that I have to have with this really important client. Let's go. Oh, let's sit at the counter. I know he loves watching the guys cooking on the grill, so let's take that client there. Or someone just wants to sit, have some oysters and a glass of champagne out on the terrace, watch the boats go by. It is everything to everyone. I want them to be excited that the restaurant's vast. It's 1,000 square meters. So, you can't see the whole restaurant. All the chefs are connected with headsets and, we're linked to the front desk and all that because it's a very big restaurant. But with the 4 open kitchens, you can also come in, and what the experience you might have in one part of the restaurant will never be the same when you come back. So you design it and you work with the architects, and you wake up in a cold sweat and think, holy shit, what have we done?
Yeah.
And then it's so rewarding when you see people sit there and they're sort of taken on a journey.
Yeah.
And they're asking questions of the chefs, and I go up to people and say, is everything okay? And they go, this is just phenomenal. Like, you can see everything. I think people are drawn to it. For me, it's the way that I feel restaurants are moving, in a sense that I see a lot of this in Asia and in America, and where, I've lived and traveled, and I wanted to bring some of that to Australia. And that was really, and the site, it's a very linear site. So it allowed us to have these 4 kitchens that sort of punctuate the space. Break up this monolith. You could have walked in and go, oh God, this restaurant's enormous. And you just, but even if you're at the furthest table, that the journey with the host walking through can take 15 minutes because what's that? And people, we were doing a project in India, and one of the guys said, what are we going to do here? And I said, the Indians eat with their eyes. If they see it, you've got to try this. We've got to have that. And I said, the Spanish are very much in that vein as well. You go to the central market in La Boqueria, and as soon as you get in, you've got to have that. And I like the idea of that. And when we were talking about Woodcut, and I said, why do we have refrigerators that hide all this amazing produce? I said, let's make these big display fridges, and the chefs work from those fridges. So if you walk in, you see asparagus, you go, oh, where's that on the menu?
Where's it on the menu? Yeah.
And there's ducks, and there's my wife's vegetarian, so there's this huge big vegetable counter. We've got a vertical salad wall that the chefs harvest the herbs and everything from. So it's very visual, and that for me is the sensory experience that you see the ingredient, you see the cooking method, then it's in front of you. And it sounds very rudimentary, but it is, it's very basic. And the cooking methods, I'm South African, so we grew up with charcoal and fire. And so for me, it's, as I traveled, the food that interested me the most was, corn grilling in the market in Guadalajara. Yakitori in Japan, satay in Indonesia. And I lived in Croatia, huge, animals on a spit, and they do the peka where they cook under the bell, and all those little things along the way are a part of Woodcut. And you need a big restaurant with lots of different cooking elements to be able to then continue that thought process, because this is just the start.
And how do those different cooking methods, those 4 kind of elements, those kitchens, how does that come together in practice, in the reality of the restaurant?
Come on, Charles, I'm still working that out. Look, I think the hardest part is, and we spend a lot of time training our staff, because people come and they say, okay, so where are the entrees? And we say, well, there's no, you could say, look at the price and you get an idea, but it's like, what do you feel like? What, I really like something from the wood oven. Okay, well, we have a John Dory that's roasted in the wood oven in a cast iron pan that comes you know, I love the idea of the unexpected in a restaurant.
Yeah.
So if you're getting the whole John Dory from the wood oven, it comes on a cast iron pan, and people they expect it to be on a plate, or they expect it to be something that and I like that idea of anticipation in food. We cook in these Romatov clay pots, and I remember in Japan having a meal in a cast iron pan with a cedar lid.
Yeah.
And it came to the table. It came to the table probably a minute earlier than the crockery and the garnishes and everything. And the first thing you wanted to do was lift the lid off that.
Yeah.
And they make you wait. And I thought, that is just genius.
Yeah.
Because now you've captured everyone's attention, and everyone, as that pot goes through the restaurant, people are saying, I didn't see that. Who ordered that? How do we get that? What is in that? You know, they want it and they don't even know what's in it. And it's those things when they finally lift that lid off. I think we talked about this before. I used to cook mussels in a restaurant I worked in, and the best part of that process was lifting the lid in the kitchen, going, oh God, you know what it's like, mussels, white wine, bay leaves, all that. And then we put it in the bowl and we sent it out to the customer. I'm like, why did we do that?
Yeah. The
best part is when you take the lid off. So in my food memories, and this restaurant is a lot of my food memories, my travels, and those are the experiences for me that elevate the experience. And it has this sometimes emotional effect on people where they remember, oh, my grandma used to cook mussels like that. And, you know, there's these things that we all have, these food memories in us. My lamb, yes, it's extremely good lamb, but when it's cooked over charcoal, people, oh, you remember Uncle Bob, the way he used to do his lamb out the back with the charcoal? You taste like Uncle Bob's lamb.
Yeah.
So those are the things that for me are transportive in dining and food and love of food. And I think that's what I'm working on at Woodcut, to make it a different sensory experience.
And what are some of the other layers of that experience? So clearly anticipation is one. There's a childhood element, but what are some of the other different layers of the experience that you kind of build in?
I mean, I'm you know, having worked in, like I said, hotel development for a long time, I'm focused on the tactility of things, the comfort. You know, Hans Wegner, one of my favorite chair designers and probably the world's best chair designer, you know, you take inspiration from that, and the texture of the weight of cutlery. The steak knives were made for us by amazing artisan Ajax out of Melbourne. And, you know, it's just working with these different people. Eugen make all our cast iron out of a foundry in just north of Tokyo. And I've worked with them for 20 years. And when you talk about these projects, everything, the linen, I make my restaurant tables, I'm giving away the secrets here, but, you know, 10 millimeters lower than a standard restaurant table, because you sit in your chair. There's a sense of you're not, you know, sitting up to the meal. Restaurant's really comfortable. You know, the way the light comes down, it just pulls on the rim of the table. It doesn't catch your eyes, and those things for me are really important, equally as important to the overall experience. What music is playing? If it's 3 o'clock on a Wednesday, I don't want to walk in 3 o'clock on a Thursday and hear the same song. There's a tactility. I love it when people sit down and they feel the furniture, and we've felt placemats on the tables, because I don't like the sound of a plate, and I didn't want obviously linen tablecloth. So there's this, how do you work around those things, be creative within that without it being kitsch or they're trying to trick something up. You know, these things are really, really important, but they have to be thought through. And you know, in the architect's office, we had a table set up for the whole project, and I added things and subtracted things and put them, and you know, we made the ceiling out of charcoal. because I was inspired by the Giant's Causeway. And I said to the architect, I said, let's just do the Giant's Causeway and bring the charcoal down, because we're cooking with charcoal.
Yeah.
He's looking at me like, you're not really thinking of it.
You're not serious, right?
Come on, you can see in the image there's a charcoal ceiling. But that's the playfulness. And I think, restaurants, you can feel uncomfortable in them. And the last thing I want is anyone to feel uncomfortable in this restaurant.
Yeah. You talk about elemental cooking. Can you just kind of characterize what that means? What's elemental cooking all about? What are those elements?
I can't sit down at a computer and say, okay, let's write the menu. It starts with, and most chefs work like this. I would say 90% of chefs work like this. It starts with the ingredient. But what we have with Woodcut is we take an ingredient and say, where's it best placed? On the charcoal, in the wood oven, in the steam kettles? Do we just do it cold on ice?
Yeah.
And what I like at my age is I've got these young, talented chefs around me who, when we open Woodcut, oh, chef, what do we do with the steam kettles? And I said, well, I don't know, but that's why we're all here. It's like, it's a steam kettle. I saw them in New York. They are just fantastic for cooking seafood.
Yeah.
So let's work it out. But I've only seen seafood cooked in them. What else can we do? Can we, do bomba rice in them? Can we do, so we have a dish called bomba rice and soup of the sea, which is something that came out of three heads together. I think we talked about, my pastry chef said, oh, I'm thinking of making this banana ice cream. And I said, great. What are we doing? Let's grill the bananas. Let's roast the bananas. Let's put them in the wood oven, or we'll grill them in the skins, do some of the skins off. And they think you're mad. And I said, well, that's what this is about. I don't know what it's going to taste like, but that's the journey.
Yeah. And
I think that for me is breaking this quite complex. We've made food incredibly complicated, and make it look like a shape on a plate because we want it to look like that shape. I just want to. I worked with a chef who said to me, "Prepare me a carrot." I was very young. I think I was 18 or 19. Luc Thibault from Toulouse and Carcassonne. And he said to me, prepare me a carrot 10 ways. Come on, Luke, young chef, smart ass, did that. He said, all right, do another 10. Did another 10, not a problem. And he said, all right, now do another 5. And I'm like, this guy is starting to annoy me. And at the end of it, he said to me, when did you start to think?
Yeah.
I said, what do you mean, Luke? He said, fundamentally, we're all lazy. We have something in our mind that we know it's our go-to, it's our thing that, let's put that with that. And it's done, it's worked in the past. I've seen it somewhere now with Instagram, shit, everyone's seen everything. But he was right. At 22 or 23 attempts, I actually was like, okay, I'm drained of everything.
Yeah.
I got nothing left. Now I have to do more.
Yeah.
And I think through my career, I've taken that as a way of saying, not pushing boundaries, but just rethinking it.
Yeah.
Why do we always do it like that?
Yeah.
Can we get more flavor? Can we get a different texture? Is this something not for the trickiness or the quirkiness or whatever? There's a lot of that around, but I just want to say, have we thought about another way? We burnt some celeriac for staff dinner one day, and the guys were going to throw it out. And I said, no. I said, smells great. So I reduced it down with some verjus, blended it with butter. And we made this burnt celeriac puree. It was black. It was burnt, but the flavor was amazing. This nutty sweetness. And so that was, and we served it with John Dory.
Is that whole kind of rule breaking thing like a foundational element in what you might grandly call your kind of culinary approach or culinary philosophy or whatever?
I think I've always been a person who questions.
Yeah.
And we've seen some through the, from, old school restaurants where, you have a roux, you make a velouté.
Yeah.
And I was shown a way where you make that with all vegetables and no flour at all. And it blew my mind.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we went through with Anton Mosiman, we went through Nouvelle Cuisine, we went through molecular food, we've gone through the new Nordic, we've gone through indigenous ingredients. You talk to some indigenous producers, foragers here, and they think, you know, these are things that some of these things should never be served with wine, or they should never, they're medicinal, they're not. Yeah. So there's so much out there that for me, I just go back to the food I like. And, you know, there's no fusion in the restaurant. I cooked Thai food with David Thompson for 5 years, so I'm still having therapy. But, you know, David was always, it was the process. Yeah. It's very specific. And for me, the process, the thought process, it's why, it's questioning. Yeah. And the best thing is to pretend you're blind when you eat a plate of food, because that is the experience. You are tasting it. And presentation and all that comes afterwards. But ultimately, you work with the suppliers, you get the ingredients that are just extraordinary. Tim Malfroy, who harvests our wild honey up in the Blue Mountains. One day I said to Tim, I'd like to take some of that really red gum honey, because the intensity of it, and I'd like to put it in the smoker, and we'll smoke some of those honeycombs. He's like, seriously, mate, you're like, what are you thinking? I said, well, let's give it a go. He said, it's going to melt. I said, no, we'll just keep it really low, 72 degrees. And, you know, we have this smoked honeycomb now, and it's great with this Pine cheddar, and but it goes with the Pine cheddar. That's it. Yeah. It doesn't go with the goat's cheese. It doesn't go with, you know, it's with the Pine cheddar.
You talked a bit about sourcing and the importance of ingredients and kind of local suppliers. How does that work? What's your kind of approach to sourcing?
I work very closely with the suppliers. I mean, we have a 300-seat restaurant. We do 600 people a day. So it's a big business. So you can't have a guy who grows, you know, 10 turnips a week. That's fantastic. But the other side of that is I'm working with a gentleman who was a broadacre farmer, and now he's reduced some of that broadacre because he's passionate about fun projects. His mind is volume. My mind is volume, but I want to curate it. Yeah. And he's like, okay, great. I said, I want a fantastic baby corn, not this hydroponic stuff that has flavorless, but I said, there's a white corn that's a bit bigger in the husk. He goes, oh shit, I can grow that all day. He said, it's easy. I said, so let's grow that for the grill, because I want to do it on the ash grill. So that's my thought process. I work with Luke on the ducks, and, you know, Aylesbury Peking Cross, and how many ducks a week are we going to go through, Luke? And this is the size that I want. And I don't want them 2 kilo. I want them like 2.2, 2.3. So I'm going to reject them at 2 kilo, Luke, because they suddenly change. The texture in the meat changes, the fat content changes, and they're different in summer as they are in winter. So you have advantages when you're our size, that you can think the same way as a 60-seat restaurant, but you can actually, a lot of my frustrations at the Bridge Room in terms of curating produce was that we were too small.
Yeah, okay.
And when you are big, you have to have people who understand big and can go for that journey, but you can create some amazing things. You can get people milling flour for you. You can get people, you know, growing specific quail for you. That's the luxury that you have when you're larger. But that's the best part of my day, is talking to my chefs, and then talking to the suppliers and finding those ingredients that are unique, or something that's not so unique. A food memory for me was Ballock salmon. I ate Ballock salmon, I think, in London a long time ago, and I thought this is the most extraordinary smoked salmon. And so I'm working with someone now who's getting a salmon from New Zealand that we are smoking in the Ballock style. Yeah. And I've never been able to do that. But I don't want to bring Ballock salmon from Europe to here.
No.
When I can find the smokehouse that will work with us. The same people who smoked my salt. We did an oak smoked salt for Woodcut, which was because when I lived in Dubrovnik, I was up in the hills and I tasted this salt where the guy was cooking in this old room. And I said, "Oh, it's amazing you smoke your salt." He looked at me like an idiot. He said, "No, it's just a salt to sit there," because it sits there with smoking. So
how do you tell these stories? Because I mean, I'm sure like everyone listening today, almost enchanted by what you've got to say, but how do you articulate that? How do you communicate that to the diner as part of the experience?
Some people want information and some people don't. I love telling the stories, and I do a lot of this storytelling with our staff.
Yeah.
And that's what our industry is about. I remember working for chefs that, when I was very young growing up, I had my South African heritage, but when I first worked with Luke, and he's like, "That's a shit anchovy. This is a really good anchovy. That's a bad olive. This is a really good olive." And when you first taste it, I look at my daughter now, she's 5 years old. Her benchmark of, a Picante Gordal olive, that's her benchmark.
Yeah.
And I think that's phenomenal. So we've come a long way, but I always take our staff on the journey and get them to understand why this lamb is different.
Yeah.
Why this tomato is different. And then also why it works in this restaurant. Because those stories for me are what brought me to Woodcut, and that's why they've joined us as a team member. Yeah. So it's our obligation to take them on that journey. Yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit about your kind of creative process? And I think you've alluded to this during our conversation, but you're creating a dish. What's the kind of start point? What's your kind of creative process for kind of pulling it all together?
Oh, look, it definitely is the ingredient. So I will find, I think, more than 5 things on a plate, you've lost it. And yeah. I think, we were just talking today about pickling artichokes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was having a chat with one of my chefs and one of my head chefs, and I said, these pickling artichokes are amazing at the moment. And so once they harvest the globe artichoke, all the little shock sprouts come out, and they're tiny. Yeah. And I said, the sweetest artichokes. I said, so let's do a dish with that. Danny's worked with me for a while. So he says, "Okay, chef, what are we going to do?" And I said, that's a stupid question, Dan. So I said, let's put them in the wood oven. Let's cook them in oil overnight, or let's put them in the steam kettles, or, so for me, it's always that there's going to be something that comes up in there, and I can't do it. Like, I studied sculpture. So if I have to be doing something else. So I'm making sculpture and I'm cooking. But like I said, I don't literally sit down, and as much as they all want to get the recipes done and into the costed and, the staff training, and it'll be me at 10:30 at night talking to one of the chefs and say, "Oh, let's just do that now and muck around with that." And the charcoal, I said, like things like, we'll see the wood oven and the dying heat of the oven. So we have, when they're cleaning down the kitchen, you have 2 hours of this dying heat. What are we doing with that dying heat? That's precious. We just burnt this amazing timber. We've got these dying coals. What can we do with that? Can we smoke some milk in there? Can we, put some onions in the ash and of the grill? Because then you're getting something that for kind of nothing.
Yeah.
And it's a massive value add for me. Whole lot of mushrooms. We've got too many mushrooms, but we're trying to support the grower. Yeah. So let's put some of those into a lactic fermentation, because we'll use that for something else, because we've got to keep that guy in business. We can't lose that mushroom guy. So how do we put another dish on? So I'm always, it's like you're trading, you're a wheeler dealer.
Yeah.
I want to keep that mushroom guy in business. So I can't have mushrooms all over the menu, but how can we value add things to make sure that he's there for us next year?
But always starting with the ingredient.
It's like we're the sourdough starter, and I've got to keep making more bread, and I want to bring those people along for the journey, because they do it so much harder than we do, the producers. We can just say, "Oh, change the menu. Sorry, mate, no more chickens." Yeah. And that poor guy, he's counting on your 300 chickens a week, you know? And that's important for me. And I think that's important for young chefs to really understand that we don't have this bounty in the oceans that we can always draw on. We don't have these people, that's their livelihood.
Yeah.
You have to respect what they do. When that product comes in and they treat it in a poor way, that upsets me more than sending out an over salty dish or burnt something to a customer. When that product, it's taken so long to get to us at the right price, at the right quality, at the right delivery time, all those things that producer has done, and then you just throw it into a container and you don't look after it. That's terrible.
As you and I both know, we could talk and extend this this session for quite some time, but I wanted to ask you just before we wrap up, the name Woodcut, what's in it? What does it mean?
The most asked question. Well, the name Woodcut it's about storytelling. And obviously you can tell I have a few stories to tell, but the oldest form of storytelling or record keeping was woodcuts. They would carve it, make a stamp, and that was the printing, and printing started through that. And so for me, woodcut was always a name that just it tells the journey, and it's always going to be a story. And through our identity and things that we're going to take that on another journey again. But woodcut is the art of storytelling, and it's an indelible print, and that's what we hope to achieve out of Woodcut.
That was brilliant. Ross, a huge thank you from the team TFP and all of the attendees at 2021 Summit for inspiring us. I think it's fair to say provoking some thought, real thought actually, with what you're doing at Woodcut. It sounds incredible. If I was in a position to jump on a plane right now and get over to you, I absolutely would. So thank you so much for joining us today, Ross. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you.
Good, and hopefully we'll see you in London soon, or we'll see you in sunny Sydney.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Right, Charles.
All right.
And thanks to all the supporters. It's really these things are really important for our industry and our community. So thank you.
It's a pleasure to talk to you.